This is perhaps my most unique movie tier list that I've ever done. What's going on, guys? I'm Chris, and welcome back to another video. So today I've got a real interesting, real unique, outside-the-box movie tier list, if you will, as I'm going to be ranking all 12 months of the year based on how good they are for movies. I'm specifically talking new releases here, how inclined am I to go to the movie theater this month, and are we actually getting any good new movies in this month of the year? Before I get into this, though, be sure to hit that like button and comment down below your favorite month of the year for new movies. Subscribe and hit that notification bell to help reach my goal of 150,000 subscribers here on the channel. It would mean a lot. And if you want extra content, I'm talking live Q&As exclusively every other week, reaction videos, commentary tracks to movies and shows. You can find that over on my Patreon. For $5 a month, your support truly does mean the world. Consider joining the Film Stock Patreon community today. It would mean a lot. Without further ado, let's dive into this tier list. The tiers I have are S tier, A tier, B tier, C tier, D tier, and F tier. Just your standard tiers. I usually throw E out because I think it's absolutely useless. But I've got the 12 months of the year in order. We're doing this thing. Here we go. The first one's January. January historically has been called the movie dump. It's usually filled with movies that aren't worthy of being released anywhere else. Oftentimes, studios will just throw what they know is going to fail into the month of January. It's very rare that we get a huge release, like a Marvel film, a DC film, a Star Wars film. Any big franchise film is going to stay far away from January. Usually we get some horror movies that are disasters. Rarely do we get a gem in January. I think it's an F tier month for film. Honestly, it's unequivocally the worst in my opinion. I don't even think you can argue that any other month is worse than January. People are heading back to school, starting the new year. No one's thinking about going to the movies. Football season is a huge thing in the US, and the playoffs begin. People are occupied on the weekends, it's freezing cold outside, and they're just putting filth in theaters. It's by far the worst month for movies. Next, we've got February, which isn't much better. However, in recent years, February has sort of opened the door to allowing an MCU movie to release. We got Black Panther, we got Quantumania, we're getting Captain America Brave New World in 2025 in February. Valentine's Day, that weekend at least, usually has one big release, so that's what's its saving grace is, right? Deadpool, I believe, came out in February, the first one, so there have been some hits to come out in February over the years, don't get me wrong. But historically, for the most part, we're still warming up into the new year, and it's not like every week there's something worth going to check out. There's usually one big movie. Other than that, the rest you can kind of skip. So I'm going to say February is a D tier month for movies. Next, we got the month of March, which in the last, I'd say, decade has kind of started to become the warm-up to summer movie season. It's the summer movie season before summer movie season. I remember in 2023, we had like John Wick 4, a new Scream movie, and another big one came out. I think it was like a Creed movie, I want to say. We usually get a good chunk of movies coming out in March. This year, we got the Ghostbusters movie, Frozen Empire. We got a new Godzilla film. Usually March has some big hitters. Of the early months of the year, March, it tries to be a top dog. It usually does. Now, does that mean we're getting great films every weekend? No, but it means we're getting at least two movies that you got to go check out in theaters. So I'm going to say March is a B tier month. It's really when things start to kick it into the next gear in terms of movies in the year. And I remember, the past couple years at least, we've had 2 or 3 weekends in a row in March where I'm like, yeah, I need to go see this movie. Are they always hits? No. Sometimes you get real stinkers in March, but you do get some gems in there too. Next, we got the month of April. We've got April showers there. April's a strange one because, again, we're not into summer movie season yet, but we're still getting some big releases. Like, I remember we got the Super Mario Bros. Movie in April. Historically, I want to say some of the Sonic films might have come out in April. It's a good month for some movies targeted to the younger audience because they can utilize spring break across the US at least, right? Most elementary, middle, high schoolers have a week off in the month of April at some point. And so for April, it's real hit or miss. I want to say the Jungle Book film came out in April, back in 2016. They're not afraid to throw a big dog in there, right? If they're afraid that it might underperform, they'll say, hey, we'll throw it in April. Usually we get a horror movie or two, but a higher quality horror film, some action films in there. I believe this year we got Monkey Man in April, Abigail, I want to say, came out in April, so nothing huge, but it is an improvement over January and February, undeniably. I'll throw April in C tier, Every now and then, they're going to start April with a bang, right around April Fool's Day, right? The first of the month. Usually, April doesn't sustain at the movie theater. You've got a long gap you know, in the middle weeks of April where nothing really comes out, it's pretty dry, they can open with a bang and close with a bang, because the end of April, I mean, that's given us Infinity War and Endgame, for Christ's sake. Marvel was smart moving it up a week early to get that extra week at the box office to have less competition as we approach our movie season. But again, April can end with a bang, April can open with a bang. Historically, the middle run of April, not really cooking. Next, we got May, which historically is the Kickstarter to summer movie season, right? I'm gonna put May at the top of B tier, right over March. Around Star Wars Day, May 4th usually, we get a big MCU film. It was Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 last year. This year, I don't actually believe we had one because it was a rarity where we only had one MCU movie, but next year we're getting Thunderbolts on May 2nd. You can go back, Multiverse of Madness came out in May. Marvel usually has a big hitter released in the month of May. If you look long term, a lot of Star Wars movies, the prequels specifically, came out in the month of May. Some Disney live action remakes have come out in May, like The Little Mermaid, for example. And May's not afraid to throw an animated movie in there from time to time as well that's gonna hit with audiences. So May's a really interesting month to me because it does have a huge summer blockbuster to sort of kick things off. It's like the opening ceremony for summer movie season. But then you got the whole middle of May where if you look at, you know, schools, they're still in session until the end of May typically. So people aren't going to the theater. They're saving it for the summer movie months, June, July, August, which we'll talk about in a second. But May is not afraid to swing for the fences out the gate and then close with a bang. I have felt, at least in recent years, that middle chunk of May can be real dry. Still, I gotta tip my hat. It's the start of summer movie season. We're usually beginning with a big bang and ending with a big bang. Gotta give it to it. Next, we have June. June's an A-tier month. June is summer movie season, right? I mean, we're not getting bangers every single week, but if you look, June is the start of summer. By definition, summer, the season, starts in June. Most people get out of school in the month of June or at the very end of May. So a lot of people have this excitement, this stirred up excitement, this almost healthy anxiousness to go to the theater and get there. It's a staple of summer, going to the movies. And June hasn't always delivered, but if we look back at June this year, Inside Out 2 is the highest grossing movie of this calendar year and a top 10 highest grossing film ever, and it released in the month of June. I could go through and list off every movie that's ever come out in June. It'd be a waste of my breath and your time, frankly. You could go to the movie theater every weekend in June and find something to watch. You could get a big rom-com. A couple years back, we got No Hard Feelings. I want to say Dial of Destiny came out right at the end of June. Pixar historically drops their big movies in June. Like, summer movie season is in effect in June. You can find some goodies in there for sure. But if you want to get real with summer movie season, let's move on to July. That's S tier right there. July arguably is as good as it gets in a calendar year for movies. Anything you want to watch, you can go see at the theater. You want to see a Mission Impossible film? You got it. You want to go see a DC movie? You probably got it. MCU lately, they've dropped something in July. A Minions film, you're getting it in July. You want to go see just any big animated film from DreamWorks to Pixar, probably going to release in the month of July. And on top of that, you're also getting some of those smaller films, those, you know, films that A24 picks up and distributes. They're dropping in the month of July as well. Like, Oscar season movies sometimes release in July. I look at last July, in 2023 that is, Barbie and Oppenheimer. Barbenheimer took the world by storm. That was July. I look ahead to next July. As of right now, you've got Jurassic World Rebirth, Superman, and Fantastic Four all lined up. Those potentially could be the 3 highest grossing films of the year, and they're releasing in July. There's just something special about July, specifically when it comes to going to the movies. In the US, most sports are dead, so no one's really caring about that. Nobody is in school in the month of July, right? It is the only month, I think, where no one is in school at any point in time for the most part. And most people are going on vacation. You got the 4th of July, very laid-back mindset, very vacation. And what do you associate with summer days and vacations and hanging out and chilling? You go to the movies. This is the month, in my opinion, alongside one other we'll talk about later, that contends for the month for going to the movies. July, you're the king as of right now. Next, we got August. The August blues are a thing for me. I don't know about you guys, but I always hated when summer ended and I had to go back to school. I almost have like trauma. Not really. I say that jokingly. Like, I would always be so like, oh, here we go again. School. And then at college, same thing. I never wanted to go back. It is what it is. It's a thing of the past. But I still, anytime August rolls around, I kind of am reminded of the way I would feel when summer ended even though it doesn't impact me anymore because I'm out of school. So it's weird. But anyway, August typically has like a big release drop mid-month. Blue Beetle was supposed to be that in, I believe, 2023. Was that 2023? I think it was. We got Alien Romulus this year. In 2016, Suicide Squad came out. So August typically has that one final summer movie. And then the back half of August is as dead as it gets. You got about 2 weeks in August to release your movies. After the first 2 weeks of August, like if you go past August 16th, no one cares. And once Labor Day rolls around, like people are back in school mindset. Like collectively, society just doesn't go to the movies as much. And then you roll into September, which we'll talk about in a second, and that's a real dead zone. I'll still throw August in B tier because, again, you got 2 weeks of summer movie season in there, essentially, and you can get some real bangers in there. Sometimes they're still going hard, but a lot of the times, August screeches to a halt mid-month, and it's like, oh, we're in the dead zone now for a good while. And speaking of dead zones, we've got September, ladies and gentlemen, the month we're in right now. The inspiration for this video is the month September. This year's a bit of an outlier. We got Beetlejuice, the new Transformers movie came out, which I'm not seeing. I haven't seen it yet. September historically is almost on par with January. They serve similar purposes. January, start of a new year. It's right after the holiday season push for movies, which I'll talk about in a second because we're getting there. But September is right after the big push for summer movie season. You got May through August, people go to the movies. September, I think we experience burnout collectively. A lot of people just don't want to go to the movies. Fall's in the air. The weather's getting cooler. There's more stuff to do on the weekends. Sports are back in full force pretty much, at least football here in America, which is huge. I know that you might laugh at that if you aren't a football fan, but it is massive. My Saturdays are dedicated to Georgia football right now.
Well, how about the dogs? That's what I know.
September rolls around. People want to go do things on the weekends. They're back in school. They're back in a rhythm. Movies usually aren't popping, all right? Beetlejuice, smart release. It worked, it's still making money. If you're not a big, movie that's gearing up for the Halloween season, historically, I can't think of anything that's like rocked it at the box office in September. It's a really dry month, I'm gonna put it at the top of F. I think it is a better month than January because I rarely ever have the desire to go to the movies in January, but September still can have those gems every now and then. Beetlejuice is lighting it up. Good for it. But September, historically, we're transitioning into the holiday season, into the Oscar movie season. It's that weird transitional period where there's a lot of nothing coming out, for the most part. Next, we have October. Spooktober to some. Spooky season is in full effect here. Usually, we're getting 2 to 3 big horror movies coming out, right? Because it's that time of year. You look back, a lot of the Halloween movies with Michael Myers come out in October. This year, we're getting Smile 2. We're getting Terrifier 3. Saw films usually come out in October or late September. I mean, historically, I think they came out right around Halloween, to be honest with you. And then you go, hey, let's go ahead and release some big hitters. You got Joker 2 coming out. You got Venom: The Last Dance coming out. October, sneaky jam-packed this year, I can't lie. If you take into account all the big horror films that have come out in October over the years and will continue to do so, as well as some of those bigger franchise films, like a superhero film usually drops at some point in October. They're cooking for the most part. You also get into the Oscar season. We're getting A Different Man. We're getting The Apprentice. We're getting We Live in Time. October, prime real estate to start dropping your Oscar season films. On top of that, you got the spooky season stuff, and you got some big blockbusters in the mix as well. That sounds like it's bordering on A tier for me. I'll go B. Honestly, right above August, just because I do think you get some goodies in there with the horror stuff. And I have the spooky season bug right now, so maybe that's inflating it. Realistically, you could make the push from anywhere from like low A to C. But this October in particular, I just feel is stacked. Maybe, though, I feel that way because September was so eh. Next, we've got November, which is massive for movies. Massive. And the reason being is you've got Thanksgiving. Around Thanksgiving, typically, we get maybe one of the year's biggest releases or two. In this case, I'm basing this off 2024 with what I'm about to say. You've got Gladiator 2, Wicked, Moana 2, all dropping in the month of November. November is also a time of year where we are full on in Oscar mode, baby. You're making the push at the end of the year. A lot of award season contenders are dropping in November. Films that aren't on our radars typically coming into the year, but they end up being some of the best movies we end up watching. And those are always the pleasant surprises. The ones that drop in November, you're like, oh, I had no idea that was coming out. Well, here we go. Like the week of Thanksgiving, damn near on Thanksgiving Day, we usually get a massive release. I remember a couple years back, Knives Out came out. We got Frozen 2, right? So like the last week or two in November, we're getting something big. You can book it. It's one of the hot spots for movies. It's one of the biggest movie release slates of any year, Thanksgiving week. So because of that, I'm going A tier with November. I actually would put June. Actually, you know what? Is June or November better? I think you flip a coin depending on the year. I'm going to say June's better right now by a hair because you've got the consistency on a week-to-week basis, whereas with November, it does feel a little more back-heavy because of the Thanksgiving push, frankly. But November still consistently has some bangers released. Now, we're on to the final month of the year. That is December. And December has Christmas. It's got Christmas break. People are off work. People are off school. People don't care anymore. By about December, 20th, you got about 11 days of people just pretty much taking off, and they're on vacation mode for the most part. Even if they're going to work, their brains aren't there. If you're in school, your brain's not there, right? People love to go to the movies on Christmas Day. I don't know if this is a fact. Someone please tell me, but I feel like it has to be. Christmas Day is the busiest day at the movies, I want to say. Usually, the biggest releases of the year drop on or around Christmas. I think of Star Wars, the sequel trilogy, all those dropped around Christmas. Avatar, one of the highest grossing franchises ever, even though I don't feel too, I feel a certain way about it, you guys know, but Avatar, The Way of Water dropped around Christmas. This year, we're getting like tons of movies in December. You got Sonic 3, Mufasa the Lion King, Nosferatu, directed by Robert Eggers. Like, that's the thing. That Christmas release date is going to have some variety. You're going to have the big movie, probably the biggest of the year, or one of, that's going to make some of the most money coming out on Christmas, but you're also going to have smaller films that appeal to, horror audiences, or you got a Tarantino film like Django Unchained dropping around Christmas. I want to say Wonka came out in December last year, and then you had a stinker that was Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, but it's still a big superhero flick. But you can always count on December to have some huge franchise films that you can go see on Christmas. Sometimes you get Christmas movies releasing. Violent Night 2022 with David Harbour as Santa. Really dug that one, came out in December. But it's not just about the huge IP films. You've got variety, and there are like 4 to 5 films worth seeing coming out pretty much every weekend when you get into the latter part. Like, this is a month where it can get overwhelming. You got to pick 3 movies to see in the last week of the year, but you could go see 7 if you wanted to. It's one of those types of things. We usually get a biopic or some sort of Oscar contender. This year, I believe A Complete Unknown with Bob Dylan, the Timothée Chalamet biopic, comes out. And so, yeah, I honestly believe December is the best month right alongside July. Pressure's on. Because of Christmas Day, I'm going top of S tier for December. Christmas is just special. There's something about it. The back 10 to 15 days of this month are so stacked every single year that it's almost overwhelming sitting here thinking about it. I gotta give the top spot to December. But that's just my ranking of all the months of the year for movies, specifically new releases. Let me know in the comments down below your favorite month and hit that like button. Subscribe to that notification bell to help reach my goal of 150,000 subscribers here on the channel. It would mean a lot. And stay tuned for more content coming very soon. But until next time, I'll see you guys later. The Bob Dylan biopic with Timothy...